Welcome along, and we continue on with this army analysis series, and now we are on the Byzantine in Italy 1040 list with no allies. So let's have a look. This is quite an interesting list. We've got some units that we don't have in other armies. Firstly, we have these scutatoi. These are some of the basically mixed bow spear units, and it seems to me that this is about the best we have. It's a little bit better than the Pavesias because they are 50% defensive spearmen, whereas the Pavesias are around a third. So it just gives you a little bit extra in the POA, which is really helpful because once they've got their volleys off, once they've gone past impact, then against defensive spear units in general and better units, then they start to be at quite a disadvantage in the melee. So any little advantage that they can get, that 50% spearman can be really useful. In my testing and my observations on the battlefield, from about 3 squares away, I think the range is 6 to 18, and they can inflict around 6 to 18 casualties, and when the enemy is right in front of them, it's around, I think it's around 12 to 40. So they can inflict, I mean, this is the way to use them really. You've got to mass them together a little bit and maybe put a spear in between, but you've got to maximize your fire and try to disrupt an enemy unit before it engages. That's the idea anyway. But let's see how they perform. I've got a feeling that they could do quite well with the new armies in this brand new DLC, because a lot of these armies, similar to this army in fact, have got a lot more cavalry than we're used to seeing with the European armies. I've got about 14 cav units here, and a lot of these armies, the Middle Eastern armies, have more units like the nomad horse archers or light horse archers, and they're unprotected and protected. I've got an armor, but that's quite rare. So a lot of the units you'll be going up against, even like the light lancers in a lot of armies, unprotected or just protected. So I think they might come in really handy fighting off the cavalry mobs that you're going to see on the battlefield with these new armies. To back them up, I've got some raw spear. Again, they might come in really handy at 24 spearmen. They might be very useful for bulking out my infantry and helping me fight off cav. I've got 2 defensive spearmen, and I have got one, if not the best unit in the game in medieval, talking about infantry, because this one is the spear. And in general, spearmen are better than units with heavy weapon because they're better against cavalry. You've got your 100 POA advantage, whereas the heavy weapon really works best against armored units. So this is more of an all-round unit. I'd always generally go for spear over heavy weapon, unless I was mixing, you know, my units up and I needed maybe 1 or 2 heavy weapon units. So that's about 12. 12 is a fair size. You know, some of these kind of half and half armies, Syrian states, I think was 10 infantry I had. Then I had, I think, about on the Georgians it was 10. And the Crusader army was 13. So it's not that much different. For these new armies, it's fine. 12 infantry units is fine. Looking at the cavalry, now the big plus with this list are these lancers. I've got all lancers, and these lancers have bow. I think all my cavalry, as far as I can see, from the light horse to your above average armored lancers to the superior armored lancers to the nomad horse archers, all of this is cavalry with bow, which is great. You're really gonna be able to dominate with your cavalry. A lot of the armies that I've just been looking at in this series, the Georgians, with my list, they had the expert armored horse archers at 5, nomad horse archers at 5, light horse archers 2, and some light horse archers. The Berber list didn't have that much cav. It was around 9, and 4 of those were light horse. Crusaders, I had 10, but quite a lot of that, over half of that, was just skirmisher type horse archers, light horse archers. So with this list, you have got a heck of a lot of lancers. So you're able to fire, and you get your POA advantage. So backed up with a fair amount of nomad horse archers, I think this is great. Cavalry, I've got 14 cavalry units, so that's really good. That's really strong. This could be a really good army. Let's see how it performs on the battlefield. But you've got a heck of a lot of firepower, like missile firepower. All my cavalry units have bows, and even half, actually. It's because 12 infantry, and I've got 6 of them are mixed bow units, so half of my infantry can fire off missiles. And I haven't included my my skirmishers. I've got the cheap N24 point skirmishers, which are great because it saves you money. So this is going to be a very interesting kind of army. I think if you could, this could be really good, this kind of map, because you've got 2 really large patches of rough ground. So you could put your mixed bow units onto this, and it's just going to make them last a bit longer. And you can just fire upon the enemy, and force them onto you while you encircle with your lancers. On a one-on-one, you would expect your guard unit to win, and hopefully win fairly quickly. There's almost no infantry unit that can beat it. So that's a bit of a plus. And so I think this is a nice list. You've got a good mix of infantry. If you can concentrate your fire, you can do damage. The mixed bow unit is, as far as I can see, about the best that you can get out of all these army lists, better than the Pavicias. So it's just going to last a bit longer. You've got the cheap end skirmishers and some great lancers. So good old Byzantine army. They don't get allies, and they don't need allies. It could be a really nice army. How would I play against them? Maybe I would take out a bit extra infantry, because once you've got past the missile fire, you've got to try and engage these units as soon as you can. The mixed bow units, you'll have an advantage even with defensive spear, your standard spearmen. Then you've got, raw spear. If you can engage them with infantry rather than cav, as I've mentioned before in other videos, raw spear can do really well against cavalry, even against knights. I've seen it. And from mid game on, once average knight unit is around 118 men. Once they dip under 100, their effectiveness goes down a bit, and I've seen them charging raw spear, and it's just holding, disrupting, sometimes rallying, holding. So, from my experience, it's better just to go in with infantry. They seem to be able to beat them down and disrupt and destroy them quicker than most cav. Obviously, if cav gets the impact and disrupts on impact, that's a different story, but often it doesn't. Cavalry is going to be tough. I mean, a lot of these armies, as I was looking at, they just, Crusader army, it just doesn't match up. The knights are going to struggle. If I took 2 knights, these lancers have got bows, so that's tough. The Crusaders only had 2 lancer units, and the rest were horse archers, so that's just not enough. Same with the Berbers, didn't have a lot of cav. It could be one of the better armies out there. I'm going to give this rating. Am I going to go crazy and even give an A? Well, I'm sure there's armies that can beat this army, and also it does depend how well you use. For me, the key is how well you use these mixed bow units. If you can get them on some rough ground, on a hill, keep them alive, then let your lancers do all the damage, then you can do really well. Am I going to give it an A? I think I am. I think I'm going to give it an A, because there's not much that's going to beat it with cav. European armies are really going to struggle. And every single one of my cav units has bow, so that means you can just have a great chance disrupting enemy cav and also force the enemy onto you, which is, if you've got your infantry on high ground or rough ground, or have some kind of advantage with the ground, it's just going to be tough to beat this army. So I maybe play a little bit defensive with my infantry and be fairly aggressive with my cav. Maybe once I got advantages with the cavalry, then you go in with your infantry. And I've even got, as I've said, the cheap end skirmishers at 24. So it's got a lot of pluses, this army. If you wanted to, you could take out, that's 87 I've wasted on this guard unit. If I took it out, I could add some more raw spear. I've maxed on the mixed bow. I've maxed on defensive spear, so I could maybe add so I could maybe add another raw spear. and maybe another of those units. The mixed bow, the war style, that gives me 38. It's a pity I haven't got a defensive spear to add. Could add some art. What have I got? 38. Maxed out there. It does get a little tricky. Maxed out there. So I'd have to mess around a little bit maybe, and you could maybe I could upgrade my archers. I prefer the 24, I think, for this kind of army, so I don't need the light archers. But for the moment, maybe we'll just add another one of those. So I've got 2 extra units, got rid of my guard. I've added another war spear. And obviously you'd have to protect your raw units, but you know, put them just behind some more regular foot. Try to maximize your fire. They could survive. I've got 11. I mean, if I wanted, I could maybe just change light jav for light archers, something like that. And archers are quite nice because, you know, they can just literally hold in the rough ground. They don't have to move anywhere. So there's a few options. Let's see how they do. What other, I mean, with the better lancers, I think around 4 might be good. You want to mix your cheaper lancers and your more expensive. You don't want to waste all your money. I think, as I've said before, sometimes it's as much about quantity as quality. So I think this kind of mix, you've got some of the superior armored lancers, some of the above average armored lancers, and then you've got your horse archers. I think that works out quite well. So really, you don't have so many choices apart from maybe taking out a guard unit and adding some cheaper units. That seems to be about the main one. So we'll see how it performs. Thank you all for watching, and D-Day approaches, beginning of the league approaches. Let's see if I can get out a couple more videos, and leave your comments below if you've played with this army in friendlies, and once the league starts, let us know how you do against this army. Maybe I've been completely wrong. This kind of army, I might be completely wrong about. These units do need protecting, and with some unlucky rolls they could fall apart pretty quickly. Same with raw spear. So, you know, maybe I've overestimated the qualities of these units. Let's see. We're going to have to hope that your lancers can really do the damage. Okay, see you again soon.